be talking about navigating forward through the waves of aging. I started out in family medicine and then started doing a lot of hospice care through Dare County, and so that's when I got my board certification in hospice and palliative medicine, and then did the fellowship in integrative medicine. And so really my big focus is quality of life. So I now have an integrative medicine consultative practice. So used to be a primary care doctor, but now I see patients in consultation at Outer Banks Family Medicine in Southern Shores. And so what does that look like? Well, I do see a lot of patients over the age of 65. And sometimes people don't think, oh, what can I do when I'm 65 and older? I've kind of lived my life, and am I going to be able to make any changes? It has been amazing and inspiring. Some of my favorite cases have been patients that are in their 70s and some of the positive lifestyle changes that they've made. I also see a lot of oncology patients as well, and a lot of those patients are in their 60s, 70s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, and have made some pretty amazing changes. What does aging well look like? So to some people, it looks very different. Some people are not wanting to go walk on the beach with their grandkids. They're like, you know what, I don't really like the sand. I'm okay to sit in the cottage. I'm okay if I can't walk those distances. And that's okay, you are where you are, but you really need to sit and think about, what does aging well look like? Because then you have to sometimes make some lifestyle changes, because things that we're doing now aren't going to get us to the place that we want to be. They're not going to help us to age well. So I'd like for you guys to take a moment, and everybody has a pad. This is going to be interactive, so I'm going to get you to write things down today. And I want you to just jot down, what does aging well look like to you? So when you think about, I'm really aging well, what things are you doing on a daily basis that you're like, you know what, I'm aging pretty well? So we've written down, what does aging well look like? Okay, so a lot of times, to live our best possible life, another thing that we have to think about is, what really brings your life joy? So what are the things that really make you happy? So a lot of times when I ask people, I always ask about spirituality when I am interviewing patients for integrative medicine. And sometimes people are like, I don't believe in organized religion. And I said, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is what makes your soul really feel alive. What really brings you joy. Because sometimes those are our whys. That's why we do things. Like, we should do them for ourselves because we want to feel good and we want to age well. But I have a 14, a 10, and a 2-year-old. And there's a lot of things that I do right now because my 14-year-old daughter is watching me. And, my 2-year-old, I'm not going to say a word that I might want to say because he repeats everything. So those are my whys. My husband, I want to live my best life. I love being with them, spending time with them. I want to be able to run and play basketball, so I have to stay in shape. So, oh God, y'all, I'm sorry. Let me see. How about that? Okay. I don't really stand still very well. So I want you to think about what brings you joy in life. What are your whys for why you came today? Why'd you come today? Why? This is about aging well. So what made you want to come? What makes you want to age well?
Walking, gardening, yoga, tai chi, water aerobics, movies, dancing, and political activism.
Wow. Awesome. That's what I'm talking about. Who else? Same.
Well, eating healthfully.
Eating healthfully.
Attending church.
Attending church.
Seeing my family. And kissing and hugging my fiance.
Oh, I felt excited when I saw y'all walk in. Kissing and hugging her fiance. They walked in holding hands. What brings you joy? Grandchildren. Spouse, great-grandchildren. That's awesome. Yes? Friends, yes, that's great. We're going to talk about all of those, yes.
Volunteering. I will volunteer at Center, Gateway Visitor Center, every Monday, all day.
Wow. Volunteers 8 hours every Monday. And she loves that. That's wonderful. So giving back to others.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Those are all phenomenal. And, you know, that's why we want to live healthy. My dad, he kind of laughs at me sometimes because I kind of can get on a high horse about nutrition. And he's finally coming around because he's seeing that the grandkids are doing it and it actually is healthy and it's going to help him live longer. So he's like, fine, I'll try it. So I might get him off bacon. It's a miracle. The next thing is letting food be your medicine. So I'm really, really passionate about nutrition. And, you know, sometimes integrative medicine, some doctors will think I've been called tutti frutti or kind of fluffy. And there's actually evidence behind what I'm talking about. So one of the things with nutrition, I like to say, don't put bad things in your temple, your body. But I have changed, and now I say, don't put bad gas in your Ferrari. That's what my husband told me I should say. He watched ESPN, and that's apparently what a football player said. And I said, I really actually like that a lot. So don't put bad gas in your Ferrari, right? I mean, we're kind of getting into the classic model car, right? So you wouldn't put bad gas to a classic model. You want to keep it well, you know, running well. So we know that nutrition, what we put in our mouth, can either help us or it can hurt us. So it's positive or it's detrimental. And I really like to focus on the positive. But it is really scary to look at the typical American diet. And we know that the typical American diet creates a lot of inflammation. And we also know that about 80% of chronic diseases, so that means diseases like high cholesterol, high blood pressure, obesity, those types of things, they can actually be prevented with lifestyle changes. So that's pretty amazing. The pharmaceutical companies might not would like us, right? Because if they could be prevented, we wouldn't need those medicines. So we know that eating a healthful diet is going to help decrease our overall inflammation. And that's the key buzzword. You guys have probably heard that if you read articles like Prevention Magazine, or if you watch the news. I don't watch the news. We're going to talk about that in a minute. I'd rather read it. And inflammation is what we're linking to heart disease, cancer, dementia, obesity, diabetes. And when we eat a healthful diet, we decrease our overall inflammation. It's like throwing water on your fire. Instead of when we eat poorly, it throws gas on the fire. When we eat well, it throws water on the fire. So it really decreases our overall inflammation. So what does a healthful diet look like? You know, my dad wants it to be a Bill Bowen breakfast with like cheese biscuits and grits and bacon and eggs, but that is not it. A healthful diet is really a diet that is founded on a lot of plants like fruits and veggies and things like that. Nuts, grains, seeds, all of those things really help to feed the bacteria that's in our stomach. So that's another thing that we're linking to with nutrition. You've probably heard about the good bacteria and the bad bacteria that's in your stomach. So when we eat a good diet, we feed that good bacteria and it makes us healthier. It decreases our overall inflammation. When we feed it bad food, it decreases that good bacteria. So it's really, the way that I really started becoming passionate about it really is that important to eat your fruits and veggies, like my mom always told me, and my grandma, she always had a garden, is in my practice, I did the Daniell Fast at my church, which is a plant-based fast that you do for a month, and you basically just eat fruits and veggies and nuts and seeds and grains, like what I'm talking about. And, oh my God, I felt so much better. And my practice manager at the time did it as well, and she really suffered from migraines that she'd get 4 to 5 times a week, and they were gone. So I started utilizing the Daniell Fast with patients, and I'd say, I know, you don't really have to go to church, but I want you to do this plant-based fast for 30 days. And never, every single patient that I had, irritable bowel syndrome, headaches, constipation, whatever it was, it always got better. So I really became passionate about, wow, this makes a big difference. And if you're sitting in here and you're like, I'm going to stop listening to her right now because I love meat. It's not that you can't eat meat. It's that your diet, your plate needs to be mostly, you know that plate, they've been showing us for years, the plate, what your plate's supposed to look like. It's that your plate mostly needs to be made up of fruits, veggies, grains, beans, nuts, and seeds. And if you can have a little widget over here that's got meat or seafood in it. I'd really encourage you, as you work towards eating more veggies, to decrease red meat. There's a lot of research out there that shows red meat really does significantly increase our risk of colon cancer. So it's kind of one of those things. Do I say you can't ever have a cheeseburger or you can't ever have a steak? No. What I normally tell patients is 80% of the time, this is how I'd like you to eat. And the majority of my patients usually come in that I'm seeing now, and they do predominantly what's called a Mediterranean diet. So anybody that's been in my private practice and was ever one of my primary care patients, that's what I talk to them about. And that's just what we're talking about. Your plate looks like lots of fruits, veggies, nuts, seeds, grains, beans, and then maybe a little bit of meat or fish, but it's turkey or chicken, right? And there's limited dairy. And what I've seen, it's been absolutely astounding. I had a lady who was in her 70s. She came in and she's like, okay, Dr. Bowen, this was about a year ago, I'm gonna try the Mediterranean diet. 3 months later, she had lost 25 pounds and said she felt the best she'd ever felt in her entire life. Just saw another lady yesterday, huge, in her 70s, suffered from migraines, headaches, no more headaches. Hadn't had them for 2 months. She's been eating like this, no headaches. And I mean, it's story after story. I put a patient that has Lynch syndrome. He had colon cancer, now has prostate cancer. And I talked to him about these dietary changes. He's lost 7 pounds while he's on treatment, which is unheard of. Usually you gain 20 to 30 pounds. And he feels a lot better than most patients do going through treatment. And those are just like 3 stories, and I hear this over and over and over again. And I tell you that because I think it makes a difference to hear stories, because it's kind of hard. Just like I was telling you about my father, he'll go on my Facebook. I have a Facebook page, and I'll try to like post stuff about recipes and why is it healthy to eat a certain way. And my dad's like, well, Christina, people are really listening to you. I'm like, yeah, Dad, that's right. And his brother died of prostate cancer at 67 just recently. And then his other brother just went through a radical prostatectomy for prostate cancer. And I was like, Dad, I mean, God is hitting you over the head that you need to change. And he's like, wow, I think I will. And so you can make changes. He's 70. So my dad's 70 years old. He just turned 70. So, and you notice that you feel better. I mean, you really, it is helpful when your partner or someone that walks alongside you through life kind of supports you through it. So my husband ate potato chips and drank Fruitopia when we started dating, but he was really hot, so I didn't care, right? So I said, I'll just have to work on him. You can change him. Really, you're not supposed to ever say that when you get married, but he changed. He eats vegetarian 80% of the time, and he has patients walk up to him and say, Dr. Mann, what are you doing? You look totally different. So it really, from the inside out, you feel better, you look better. Another thing with nutrition is there's a lot of talk around organic foods, which make a difference. And why does that make a difference? So pesticides are chemicals that really are detrimental to our body. But the Environmental Working Group, which is a great thing for you guys to write down, it's ewg.org if you don't know about it. It's a wonderful resource to go, and each year they put out something called the Dirty Dozen or the Clean 15. And those are the top 12 foods, when they look at them and they study them, that have the most pesticides. So those are foods that you would want to try to get organic if you can. And it makes a big difference because pesticides decrease our good bacteria in our stomach. They increase estrogen in our body. So for women, that's a really big deal because we don't want estrogen without progesterone. It's the yin and the yang. So you don't want that. If you've ever had breast cancer and it was an estrogen positive cancer, that's another reason that you want to eat organic. And in general, because I have 3 kids and I honestly can't remember the dirty dozen every year, I just say if you're going to eat the skin of it, then it most likely needs to be organic, because that's where the biggest pesticide residue is. The other thing that needs to be organic, if you choose to have dairy, then that's another thing that really does need to be organic, as do eggs. So eating like this, even though it sounds like it's going to be more expensive, it actually, you save money, because you find that you're buying more veggies. They're cheaper than buying meat. They're a lot cheaper, actually. The other thing that's really important, especially as we're aging well, is to make sure you stay hydrated. I personally think that's really hard, to stay really hydrated. I have to carry a water bottle around with me, or I will drink like a coffee cup like that a day of water. So it's really important as we age too, because a lot of patients are on medications, blood pressure medications. Sometimes men are on medications for their prostate that can also lower your blood pressure. And we can get dizzy and we can drop our blood pressure, and then that's when we fall. And so even though I like for my husband to stay in business as an orthopedic surgeon, I don't want y'all to break your hips. So we want you to stay hydrated and prevent dizziness. So 64 ounces of water a day is what you need to drink. Now, decaf tea counts. Decaf green tea is a great thing to drink. Herbal teas are anti-inflammatory, so they decrease our overall inflammation. So tea is a great thing for you guys to drink as well. So just important to remember, we need to have that water. My only aside for this is that if you have a diagnosis of heart failure, or if you are a dialysis patient, this would be something that you would want to run by your cardiologist or your nephrologist, because you would have different levels of hydration that you need throughout your day. So those are 2 instances that you would want to check with your physician about, what is my water intake supposed to look like. So, how does all this sound?
Good.
I want you guys to think about, I want you guys to start thinking about 2 nutritional changes or things you can walk away from hearing me say. I'm going to just call on you, like Kay said. We're going to make it real interactive. You guys can raise your hand. 2 things that listening to this that you think you could do that would make you feel like you're eating a more healthful diet. And that, with that being said, eating is supposed to be fun. I tell patients all the time, I don't want to give you these recommendations for your nutrition and you feel like you're in a mental prison. Right? You want it to be fun, mindfully eat, enjoy the food, have gratitude around what you're eating. That's really important. So who can raise their hand and tell me something they're going to do, walk away from? And maybe you've been thinking about it before you even heard me talk. Yes, in the back.
Go organic.
Ooh, go organic. Awesome. How about one more? Oh, my favorite couple back there.
Drink more water.
Drink more water, yay! That's awesome. I do tell patients the easiest way to do it is to carry a stainless steel water bottle around, because then you can keep count of how many you've had. How about one more? Anybody else?
Organic milk and eggs, I didn't know that.
Oh, great. Okay, organic milk and eggs, yeah. So on the Outer Banks, we do have to shop around a little bit, but we do have a lot of wonderful options here. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is alcohol. Which is funny. I was going to talk about this anyway, but Sheila probably knows. Daryl's probably like this. He has to listen to your talks, right? Yeah. So Chris is like, are you talking about alcohol? Because he operates on patients that he has no idea how much alcohol they drink until after they get operated on and they're needing some alcohol. So it's really important. As we get older, our lean body mass decreases and our adipose tissue increases. So what we can drink when we're 20 is not what we can drink when we are in our 60s and 70s. So 1 drink a day for women. What does that look like? That is a 12-ounce beer, a 5-ounce glass of wine, 1.5 ounces of liquor, or 8 to 9 ounces of high octane, the frou-frou beer. I love that kind. So those are smaller and they cost more. And 2 drinks per day for men. So that means 7 drinks. I know it's not fair. I'm sorry. It is one of the things I'm going to talk to God about when I get to heaven. I'm going to be like, I'm the mom. I should get the more out. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, 1 drink for women, 2 drinks for men. So that's 7 and 14 per week. So, and the reason that this is so important, and it is really hard, it's interesting. When I was in primary care, I can tell you my patients that were retired drank my 30 and 40-year-olds under the table. When I'd ask them, they'd be like, yeah, I drink probably 2 or 3 glasses of wine. I was like, what? I didn't really say that. I was like, okay, great. Well, we need to decrease that. But it's easy. We live in a wonderful community. It's so beautiful. It's getting sunny outside. You can sit and have a cocktail with your friend or your partner, and 1 turns into 3, right? And what we know is it increases our inflammation in our body. We don't metabolize it as well, and it can interact with a lot of pharmaceutical medications. So alcohol does interact with pharmaceutical medications. And the other thing is, if you or someone you love has cognitive difficulties or dementia, alcohol makes those symptoms worse. And so it's really, and that's when we see more falls happening. I know my grandfather loved, God bless him, he liked to drink liquor, but we had to get him off the liquor because as he was getting more and more feeble, he's 92 right now and he does great, but we can't let him drink anymore. And he'd only drink like 1 or 2 drinks a night, but it was enough with his deconditioning that he was falling all the time. And it's a miracle greater than the resurrection, we say, that he hadn't hit his head. And so we had to get him off because it really was impairing his ability to function with his activities of daily living. And the other piece of this is a lot of times I'll see patients and they say, well, Dr. Bowen, I'm going to have this 1 drink right before I go to bed because it's going to help me sleep. It doesn't. It actually really interferes with our sleep. So if you're going to have a cocktail or a glass of wine, it's better to have that with dinner and then to stop after dinner, because that usually is a couple of hours before you go to bed. So that's my beef on alcohol. Does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Yeah.
What do you say to these people who say, well, I don't drink all week long, but on Friday I drink all my 7 beers at one time or 8 beers?
So in medical school, that was a long time ago, but that was considered alcohol dependence. So people that would do binge drinking on the weekend. So that's still unhealthy. Just because you save up all week doesn't mean your liver gets to be this big and metabolize the 7 drinks. Because it's really about the metabolizing of the alcohol, and our bodies just aren't able to metabolize it as well. So that's a great question.
And does it raise your, like for people with diabetes, it raises your blood sugar?
It does. It raises your blood sugar. It turns straight into sugar.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
what I thought.
Yeah, it does.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great questions. So the next thing we're going to talk about, and I had a really funny cartoon for this one, was exercise.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What happens if you don't drink? My husband say I should drink at least a glass of wine a day.
No, that's wrong. She asked, you're wrong, husband, are you in here? No, I'm just kidding. So she asked, what if I don't drink? Should I start drinking? Absolutely not. I actually have a girlfriend that said that to me. She said, my husband said I should go to Trio with you and you would help me drink wine. I'm like, no, I won't. What? Because she doesn't drink. I was like, don't start drinking. So wine it's red. It has the anthocyanins, and everybody said, oh, it's so good for me. If you're going to drink, red wine is the thing to drink. Okay, let's just say that. But drinking increases our risk of breast cancer by 30% if you're a woman. If you have more than 5 drinks a week and they're starting to lower it, it really significantly increases our risk of breast cancer. So that really just stinks. That's another thing I'm going to ask God about. But it's true. So it's not one of those things. So the benefits that you can get from red wine, you can get from other foods. So it's not something that you should start doing. That's a great question. And so exercise. Exercise is super important, and as we age, it gets more and more important. And this really is one of the things, I did a talk on dementia a few years ago. It really has been shown, even if you have cognitive decline or someone has dementia, it helps to decrease the progression of the dementia. So it really is wonderful to get people out and walk. I just say move your person. Nutrition and exercise are the two, in my opinion, most important things. If you take something away from my talk, that I really want you to take away, that those are the things that will really help you to age well, to exercise and move your body and, stretch, do Tai Chi. I mean, the Balm Center is amazing. The classes you guys have that are free are just outstanding. Exercise improves every chronic illness. It improves constipation. It improves dementia. If you do walking, because a lot of times people are like, well, I just want to walk, Dr. Bowen. That's great. It's awesome exercise. It's good for osteopenia. It's good for osteoporosis, which is thinning of your bones that many women have. And you can also remember that you can break up your exercise routine. The recommended dose of exercise is about 150 minutes a week. So it's 30 minutes, 5 days a week. And then I'd love to see you doing some strength training exercises and possibly yoga or Tai Chi, because we want to keep our flexibility, because then it helps us to fall well. So if we fall, we'd like to fall well. The exercise that you're doing, that 30 minutes a day, the cardiovascular exercise, you can break that up. So if you're like, my stamina is, I don't feel like I could walk for more than 10 minutes, that's okay. 10 minutes is awesome. And then do another 10 minutes later in the day and another 10 minutes. So you can add it up, and it does accumulate. It's just like doing it for 30 minutes. So it does still, you get all those health benefits. And what I say to patients to get them to keep doing it is you have to put it on your calendar. It has to be as important as your grandkids coming in for a visit. Like, you're not going to miss that, right? Nope. Or, going to get your hair done, or guys going to play golf, going to play cards with your friends. It needs to be that important that you put it on your calendar. That's what I've had to do, because I'm a mother of 3 and trying to work, and you're like, oh, I either have to get up at 5:30 or I'm not going to exercise. So every Monday and Thursday I go with a trainer and I go exercise, and I will schedule meetings around it. Other than this one I'm missing today, and my trainer didn't even reply back when I said I couldn't be there. But I don't miss it. Like, I really do. I build my life around those because it's that important. It's part of self-care, which is really important. As we age, we have to take care of ourselves. So, you need to do things that you like to do. So the Balm Center classes, the Outer Banks Hospital has free yoga that they're going to be starting up, and I believe it's 3 days a week at 7 a.m. And the YMCA has wonderful classes as well. So a lot of opportunities for exercise classes that are actually free, which is nice, as well as joining, sports centers. I do think that having an exercise buddy makes a big difference. So I have a running partner, and I just feel like she's straight out of heaven. And that is because we've decided, she's a counselor, so we kind of go swim at the deep end of the pool and talk about deep stuff when we run. EMDR is a form of therapy, so it's rapid eye movement therapy. And when you're talking to a friend that you can be real and honest with, you're externally processing life with them. And it's therapeutic. You're getting the good endorphins from the exercise, decreasing your inflammation from the exercise, and you're also having the connection. I believe somebody over here said friends bring her joy. That's one of the reasons that it's so wonderful to have an exercise buddy, because some people in this room are caregivers, right? And so for you to get out and exercise and then go have time with your girlfriends or your guy friends might not be a reality. You just might not be able to get away for that much. So it's combining that so that you also get the exercise and you get the benefit of connection, because connection is very important as we age for our brains and just for our overall morbidity and mortality. So really important. Okay, so who wants to tell me one of their exercise goals that they're walking away from making sure we're good on time? Or you can tell me what you're already doing.
Tai Chi at the Dare Center.
Tai Chi at the Dare Center. That's great. Who else in here is exercising regularly?
I have a Fitbit.
Great.
And I go try for like 15,000.
Oh, that's awesome. So a Fitbit, and she tries for 15,000. That's amazing.
Collecting seashells on the beach, and when I bend, I try to stretch my legs out, different positions.
That's wonderful. So collecting seashells on the beach, and when she bends over, she's trying to stretch, which that's a great example of doing something you love and incorporating that into your exercise routine.
Zumba 3 times a week.
Ooh, Zumba, 3 times a week. We have a dancer.
I'm an avid cyclist and started a cycling club in the Outer Banks for seniors in about 8 years now.
That's great.
I've had some I was a caregiver. My spouse passed away from ovarian cancer.
Oh, yeah.
And I met this wonderful lady next to me.
She's pretty wonderful.
We're getting married. Both of us believe in exercise and understand the value of that connection between two human beings.
Yeah.
So we bought a tandem bike and we're riding together.
I've seen you guys tandem bike riding. That's wonderful. That's mine and Chris's favorite thing to do is be active together. It connects you. That's wonderful. So these are all great. Oh wait, we have another over here.
Just doing like daily things like folding laundry.
Yeah.
You put the laundry basket on the kitchen table, and then every time you take a shirt out or something to fold, then do like a squat. And then you get up and
Love that. She's working her glutes.
yeah, and then we're like you do a lunge, And
That's great. So using housework as exercise, I'm going to try that. That makes it fun, maybe. Water aerobics, 5 days a week. Water aerobics is I love water aerobics because a lot of my patients do have arthritis, and it can be hard to walk and it can cause a lot of pain, but water aerobics is phenomenal for your joints. Swimming, those are the best.
I do water aerobics and bowling.
Water aerobics and bowling. These are great. So that another good thing about that is hobbies, and I didn't even include that in this talk, but having hobbies is really important. Things that you really love to do that are kind of your own thing that you do, separate from your spouse if you're married. So that's wonderful. Thank you guys for sharing. The next thing we're going to talk about is sleep. So insomnia is probably one of the most common things that I see when I see patients, and that can be, it's usually in the 40s that I start seeing people, so 40s on up. I don't sleep well, I haven't slept well my whole life, so it's really, really important to sleep well. So when we don't sleep well, it raises our cortisol level, which is the bad guy that causes inflammation in our body. So cortisol is released when we're running from bears back when we were cavemen. If you've ever heard me talk, you've heard me say that, which is great if you're running from a bear, but thankfully we don't have to do that now. And so our cortisol is good in short bursts, but over long periods of time, it's not good. So when we go with chronic sleep deprivation, it raises those cortisol levels and creates a lot of inflammation, which a lot of times leads to anxiety and depression. And what I say, and this is not a politically correct term, it's just one I use, is you kind of view the world instead of rose-colored glasses, you kind of view it through like poo-poo colored glasses, like everything's kind of like, and you have a little bit of apathy because you're just exhausted. And so things just don't make you happy anymore. You can't see things like you're like, I'm failing to see the silver lining in this situation. You just can't see it. So what do? Like, how do you remedy that? A lot of times what I see a lot of patients go to sleep, have a hard time they'll wake up, go to the bathroom, have a hard time getting back to sleep, or they can't fall asleep. So it's very important number one, you've got to exercise, right? Got to exercise. That definitely helps you to sleep better. The other thing is you don't want to eat right before you go to bed. And you don't want to drink alcohol right before you go to bed. Because even though you feel like it makes you relax and you go to sleep, you don't have deep sleep. So those things being said, it's very important to develop a sleep routine. So we do that for babies, like they are going to bed at the same time every night, and we're going to wake them up at the same time every morning, and they have a bath, and then they read a book, and then we sing them a song, and then we lay them in the crib. There's a reason that works, and we need to do that as we age. We need to do the exact same thing. So, developing a sleep routine where maybe you drink a glass of decaf tea instead of have a glass of wine if you were having a glass of wine. Maybe you take a bath, or you take a shower, or you read a book. A lot of people watch TV before they go to bed. I'm not a big fan of TV 2 hours before bed because it emanates blue light. So when you walk outside and you look at the sky, it tells your body to decrease your melatonin secretion, which is your sleepy hormone. So when we watch TV, it's emanating that same blue light, so our body decreases our melatonin levels. And as we age, our melatonin decreases anyway, so that's not really helping us. So some people say, well, I don't watch TV, I use my iPad. The only perk to iPads is that you can put them on a nighttime setting so that they don't emanate blue light. So if you feel you must watch something instead of going old school and reading a paper book, right? They're totally old school now to say I read a book, like just a book. Then you need to decrease your blue light. The Kindle also has that. So a lot of the electronic devices, if you're using those at bedtime, you can have a nighttime setting. So developing a sleep routine, having your room cool, white noise in your room. The bedroom is only for sex and sleeping, not for anything else. And you need your bedroom to look like a sanctuary. So what does that mean? It means not piles of books, not piles of mail, not clothes everywhere. Like you need to walk in and go, oh, exhale, not go, oh, I need to clean. So if there's one room in your house that you can do that, it needs to be your bedroom, because it's really going to improve your sleep. With that being said, make your bed up every day. Maybe you guys do that and you're good, but that makes you, I will make my bed up, because I'll come home, Chris does not believe in making up a bed, I love him, but, and I will come home if he's had the kids all day and make up the bed so that we can get in the bed made up. And Emerson, my son, does the same thing. I was like, oh, thank God I passed that along. So it's really important. It makes you feel rested. It's neat and organized, because chaos increases our cortisol levels. So when you walk into a bedroom that looks like a bomb went off, it increases your cortisol levels, which make it harder to go to sleep. The other thing that I do see a lot of patients is they say, I can't tell you how many patients I've seen that say, well, Dr. Bowen, I don't sleep really well. And I'm like, okay. And I'll spend 45 minutes talking to them. And I've talked about sleep routine and their sleep hygiene and maybe their supplements they could take. Oh, and I have sleep apnea and I don't wear my CPAP. I'm like, bless, you gotta wear it. If you have sleep apnea, you gotta wear it. You're not gonna sleep well. And I'm not gonna go into the physiology of sleep apnea, but it's a must. You gotta do that. I know it's not fun sometimes, but that's a must. So who in here, if they feel comfortable, has trouble sleeping? So what is something you feel like you could do maybe to improve your sleep?
Well, all of the above, but CPAP. Wear the CPAP.
Oh, she said all of the above, but I need to wear my CPAP. Told you.
My bedroom looks like chaos.
Her bedroom looks like chaos.
So I needed to get it in order.
No judgment. So yeah, these are real things. I read about this stuff all the time. These are things and patients, this is stuff that they tell me all the time. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is connection. It's really important. So connection, being here today, this is connection. Getting to talk to people that are like-minded, that want to age well. You guys are going to get to share ideas and talk today as the day goes on. We know social isolation is a marker for morbidity and mortality in older patients. And so it's very important that we interact with friends and peers. That's why I love the Baum Center, because I feel like it's not just exercise. I've looked at this calendar for my grandparents and my parents. There's a lot of different activities that you can get involved in. Support groups are another way for connection. So gym is wonderful. If you have a loved one that has cognitive difficulties and you can go there and be with other caregivers and your significant other. Church is actually a great place. If you go to church, that's another place that we find really positive things for patients if they, as they age and if they're going through stressful times in life, because there's a communal support that's at a church group. So I really cannot stress that enough, because I've had lots of people that are introverts. So does everybody in here know what an introvert is? Because this is what I talk about all the time, so I just assume. And they'll say, well, I mean, I don't really, even in my Bible study, I had a person say this. She's like, well, I'm an introvert, so I don't really know. I mean, sometimes I don't feel like I need people. Even introverts need people. You might not need as many people as an extrovert, or you might not get filled up by being around a lot of people, but everybody needs one person in their life, I think, other than their spouse, that they feel connected to and they can be really authentic with and they enjoy spending time with. It's very, very important. So now I want you to take a minute.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
We have a great facility at the Dare Center where we have a meal every day for anywhere
Wow.
from 15 to 35 adults that are over 60. So that's a great place to come and make a connection, as well as other classes that we have there for seniors at over 55 that are free as well.
Can you tell I live in Kitty Hawk? I'm so sorry I did not mention the Sweet Dare Center. So the Dare Center has a meal every day for 15 to 35 people. If you're over the age of 60, you can come, and that is awesome. Have fellowship over food.
Yeah, we have you have to be over 60, and we have also Meals on Wheels and the Bond Center does that as well.
Yeah.
So it comes from the funding that pays for the money for the Meals on Wheels, correct?
Oh, that's wonderful. So thank you. Please speak up for any services that I am not aware of. And they have awesome Tai Chi. So, I would love for you guys to write down in the next week one connection point that you're going to do. So you're going to either call a girlfriend, go out to lunch. Guys, you're going to go, not drink a beer. You can have your one beer. But you're going to go do something with a friend. I want you to write that down. We're 80% more likely to do something if we write it down. So write down one thing you're going to do as a point of connection over the next week.
Can it be with a spouse?
It can be with your fiance. That's awesome.
Oh, your dude's spouse, yeah.
That's what mine is. So the next thing well, that was just perfect timing, because the next thing we're talking about is intimacy. Perfect. So this is so my husband told me I needed to be sure I talked about alcohol and sex. Those were the two things he told me when I said aging well. I was like, Chris. He's like, I'm just saying, they're gonna like it. They'll stay interested. Okay. So intimacy, though, I choose to call it something else, because intimacy looks different as we age than it did when we were 20, right? And so I do see quite a few patients that are not able to be sexually intimate with their partners anymore, oftentimes due to medical problems, right? And there's nothing they can do about it. But they're very connected and they're very intimate with their partners. And for women, we know, studies show, communication is more intimate. Deep, soulful communication is more intimate for a woman than even sex, right? So it's really important, even if you can't be sexually intimate, that you still have moments of intimacy with your partner. And I know this doesn't apply to everybody in the room. If you don't have a partner, you're not married. But if you are, it's really important. It's an area of your life that you shouldn't neglect. Even as we age, this is very, very important. And if you are sexually active, fantastic. And it is good for you. It increases your immune system. Just saying. So the next thing I want to talk about real quick is stress. So stress really does make a difference. We know that stress is linked to cancer, it's linked to dementia, it's linked to heart disease. It's really scary. It lowers our immune system. And those are when everybody has stress, but this is stress that goes uncontrolled for long periods of time. And it increases our risk of anxiety and depression. And so we really need to find positive ways to deal with our stress. So that exercise is wonderful, nutrition helps too, but meditation, prayer, yoga. I'm such a big fan of yoga because I love that it's exercise and it has a meditative practice. So I really think that's a wonderful thing to do as well. Meditation is amazing. There's a free class on Sundays at 4 o'clock at the studio in Nags Head on mindfulness meditation. That's wonderful. A lot of my patients have really enjoyed that. So there are free classes that are actually offered on meditation because a lot of my patients say, I don't know how to meditate, Dr. Bowen, or I can't quieten my mind. If you have a smartphone, there are a lot of meditation apps that you can use on your smartphone or guided imagery. You can go on YouTube and there's a lot of meditations you can use to help you with if you have chronic pain, if you have anxiety, depression, or just general wellness. So those are all ways that we can deal with stress. Another thing I'll also say is that some of our stress, this is really important, we can't do anything about, right? So if you're a caregiver, it's really stressful. Your health, we show that it can decline if we don't take care of ourselves as we're caregivers. Financial stressors, maybe a job that's stressful. Those are things that a lot of times we can't do anything about. But what I'll say to you is if you have stress in your life that you do have control over, you need to eliminate it. I do a talk for the patients that are getting their joints replaced at the hospital, and I talk about stress. And I say all the time, that might mean eliminating a person from your world. Like, someone that is not filling your cup, that you feel like you get around and you just feel negative, or it's just a toxic relationship, you can gracefully step away, right? They're not your point of connection for the week, hopefully. So if there's stressful things that you can eliminate, then I would say try to do that. So I want you to write down one area that you feel a lot of stress in your life currently and one way that you're going to try to positively deal with that. Oh, yes, go ahead, Gail.
We went to a concert last night at First Flight High School, and music is an incredible stress.
Music therapy, yes.
Not only therapy, just
Listening to it. I thought, yeah, and that's a great point. So music raises your endorphins. That's one of the things, I could talk on this. I did do a talk on this for 3 hours. So music raises your endorphins. It doesn't have to be, specific music therapy, but listening to music that makes you happy, that is one of the things I also say to the joint patients at the hospital. Make a playlist that makes you happy so that you have music that when you listen to it, it is just like, woo, you just feel so excited. It makes a big difference. Thank you for sharing that. And it definitely helps with stress, for sure. So I feel like I should go like this. The next thing that we're going to talk about is caregiver exhaustion. So when I'm doing a talk with people on aging well, I feel like I have to talk about this. I see this with my mom and dad. I told you my dad's 70, my mom's 69. They take care of my grandparents who are 87 and 92. And it is unbelievably stressful. And my grandparents are pretty independent, but they're worried. Like I said, my grandfather's fallen a lot. My grandmother, we lost my uncle 4 years ago unexpectedly. He was 59. And just a lot of stuff that's been really hard to deal with, and she's had a really hard time. So it's real, and it doesn't necessarily have to be your partner. It could be your child. But caregiver exhaustion is real. And so all these things that I've talked about up until this point are ways that you can help take care of yourself because it's vitally important when you're a caregiver. Signs that you're having caregiver stress and that you're just getting exhausted and worn out, that you're resentful, bitter, and you just feel stressed, or you're feeling underappreciated, overwhelmed, depleted. Those are all feelings that you feel when you're like, I'm kind of tapped out. Like, I might not be taking really great care of myself. So this is when it's really important that we do things like respite care. Maybe somebody can come into your house. Someone needs to step in and help you with whoever you're taking care of. Because when someone, I love this quote, when someone else takes over the caregiving responsibilities, even for a short time, the caregiver can step back and focus on themselves and rest and recharge. And that's really important. And asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It shows that you're strong because you want to be better able to take care of whoever it is that you're taking care Because sometimes, and I've seen this with my grandparents, you can overhelp and you start to feel like, let me see what my quote is, they're dependent on you. Oh, they have to have me, but they do okay. My grandparents live down here, my parents leave, and I check on my grandma and my granddad. They're fine. They go out to eat at Burger King, but that's okay. They're 87 and 92. I'm not going to get in their face. And, they do a great job. So there is some of that, like you have to let go a little bit. It's kind of like a child, like you've got to give them a little bit of independence even when you feel nervous. The next thing that I want to talk about real quickly is polypharmacy. This is a real problem in people as we're aging. So what is polypharmacy? It means a lot of different medications that you're taking. And how do they interact together? So a lot of patients that I see are on medications, and I was reading studies last night. It said 40 to 50% of patients, older patients, are on one medication that they probably don't need. So I love medications if they're warranted, but if they're not warranted, I don't want you to be on them because they can have side effects. So the first thing I would say to you is you need to know and carry with you every single medication that you're on with an updated list and why you're taking it. That is so important. A lot of my patients don't know why they're taking it. And if you're like, well, I can't remember why I'm taking it, have it written down on that list, like the medication, when you take it, the dose, and why you take it. We have a pharmacist at the Outer Banks Hospital. Her name is Anne Marie Parker, and she's boarded in geriatric pharmacy. I wanted her to come today, but she had to work, so she couldn't come. So she's amazing, and they're probably going to kill me when I say call them, but she has definitely helped the nurse practitioner in my office, and perhaps you can go to your primary care doctor and say, if it's possible I could get a consultation with her, or you could call. She's very good at knowing what side effects, if you were to have symptoms or things like that, and sometimes they can come from your medicines. So a lot of times we say utilization of a geriatric pharmacist is really great if you're on a lot of medications. So polypharmacy is one thing that's very important. Supplements, I am an integrative medicine doctor. I recommend supplements a lot to patients, but I can tell you certain supplements interact with medications. So supplements are not one of those things, even though they say they're all natural and they're not going to hurt you, you need to see someone that's knowledgeable about supplements and medications. So we want to make sure that you're taking exactly what you need when it comes to natural things and medications. It's really important. The last thing that we're going to talk about kind of go hand in hand, and that's long-term care. So I think when we're aging well, that is really, really important. So what does that look like? Well, it doesn't necessarily mean long-term care insurance, which I think some people get, and I think that's probably a good utilization of your resources if you're able to financially do that. So you talk to your financial consultant so that you know financially your affairs are in order. Your family's taken care of. Anything that you would need taken care of financially is taken care of. That's very important. It also allows you, when you think about long-term care planning, it allows you to make this decision. Living will, healthcare power of attorney. It doesn't matter your age. At 65 and older, your primary care doctor should be asking you about this. But if you're younger than that, Chris and I have a living will. We have a healthcare power of attorney. If you have people that, if you're in this room, you need to have it, basically. I wouldn't tell a 14-year-old to get it, but you guys, if you're here, it's really important. And I can tell you from being a doctor that I was a hospitalist and I worked in Charlotte and I was on faculty, and I had to help families make unbelievably hard decisions because their family member had not talked to them about their wishes. And so it's really important that you make your wishes known to your family. And that you talk to your loved ones about it, because if you were to get in a situation where you weren't able to speak for yourself, it's really important. And think about what you would do. I tell patients, you're in great health now, but think about what if your health isn't so great? Where are you going to live? Where would you want to go? Would you go live and move closer to your kids, or do your kids live here? So it's just starting those conversations are really important. We're done. Kind of right on time.